In the 34th episode of the American Reveille Podcast, I discuss the real pandemic facing Americans today, and it's not COVID-19. It's the left. I discuss the conditioning we got used to while they snuck in right under our noses. I talk about how definitions have been altered to purposely confuse and disorient regular Americans, while what feels like an invasion continues to take place in public schools, colleges, universities, the mainstream media, and big tech companies. Sifting through the censorship, the woke bias, and the social justice warriors, I finally reach my conclusion. The left is infected, and we are the cure. Ladies and gentlemen, today is October 5th, and this is the American Reveille Podcast. We are just 29 days from what could quite possibly be the biggest election in American history. I'm James Lane, and happy Monday, or whatever day it is, as we count down to possible apocalyptica. Folks, I'm going to level with you. I wasn't expecting President Trump to catch COVID-19. That kind of threw me off a little. So with that being said, I did write an article about how catching it will actually help his re-election bid. And so far, over 2,000 people agreed with me when I said that first-hand experience with the virus will definitely win over undecided voters. And guess what? We were all right. I've been seeing reports that his popularity has actually gone up since contracting the virus and slogging his way through it. And I think his video from Walter Reed went a long way. Here's an example of what I mean. The president with the virus, making the best of it and demonstrating to the people what a leader actually does. Take a listen.
But I had no choice because I just didn't want to stay in the White House. I was given that alternative. Stay in the White House, lock yourself in, don't ever leave, don't even go to the Oval Office. Just stay upstairs and enjoy it. Don't see people, don't talk to people, and just be done with it. And I can't do that. I had to be out front, and this is America. This is the United States. This is the greatest country in the world. This is the most powerful country in the world. I can't be locked up in a room upstairs and totally safe and just say, hey, whatever happens, happens. I can't do that. We have to confront problems. As a leader, you have to confront problems. There's never been a great leader that would have done that.
I don't know about you, but I find that to be some pretty inspirational stuff. So if a 74-year-old man can beat COVID-19, then what do I have to worry about? That's the point, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to calm a lot of nerves and build a lot of bridges. I also thought it was a historical sight to see all of those people outside of the hospital showing support and love for a president. It was truly beautiful to see, and it makes me so proud to be an American. And even cooler, the president took a little car ride and personally showed some appreciation to everybody. These are true patriots, ladies and gentlemen, true patriots, not like these social justice wannabe thugs and these racist organizations we see terrorizing Democrat cities, not like these coddled crybaby leftists, these socialist infiltrators, these putrid, poisonous, progressive provocateurs. They've been infected, they've been tainted, coddled, cuddled, and now they have the nerve to demand the destruction of our very way of life, the destruction of the United States of America. So how did we get here? It didn't just happen overnight, did it? No. This was a slow process that happened over some time. It happened right under our noses, ladies and gentlemen. What we figured were just passing phases turned out to be gigantic red flags that just went unnoticed. My God, isn't it amazing what people can get used to? Wait a minute. Wait, don't you see a problem with that statement? Isn't it amazing what people can get used to? Well, why do we have to get used to something we don't want or like? I mean, this is a free country, isn't it? That's what we used to say, at least. Unfortunately, though, This is our new reality, our censored reality, our regulated reality, safe and sound, warm and comfy, tucked deep in the bosom of government dependence. That's what they want us to get used to. That's ultimate, pure, overwhelming, and dare I say, unimaginable power. Again, isn't it amazing what people can get used to? Folks, I don't know if you remember, but there were riots in 2015. There were riots in 2016, riots in 2017, 2018, and did we hear much about them? The left started infringing upon our rights and our freedoms years ago, but really ramped it up over the last few years, one small bite at a time. One day people were really just arguing about pronouns. Another day they were arguing about bathrooms. We blinked and they were burning down cities. Where did this come from? You know, for many decades, the Democrats have been looking for ways to control vast stretches of power through the subjugation of the poor and ignorant in this country. Many in minority communities, all of these people get drawn into the welfare system and become dependent. They become taken care of. They trade their vote for complacency. That's the ultimate goal of the Democrat Party. Why should you get a job and contribute to the economy when you can just make more money living off the government and screwing off? I mean, that's the ultimate Democrat sales pitch anyway. This isn't new information, so why am I saying it? The far left has practically militarized, folks. They've hijacked any sense of moderation left in the Democrat Party. This is the truth. This is what they don't want you to hear. Our children, they've been indoctrinated in our institutions. They've been corrupted by radicals, created by a system designed to produce more radicals, a system that's been years in the making. At this point, folks, the left would like you to believe that the institutions I'm talking about are systematically racist and that white supremacy flows through them from centuries past. That's what critical race theory says, and it's socialist propaganda, folks, plain and simple. I'd like to propose an argument here and now, an argument no one on the left will want to hear. These systems, they may look systematically racist to some of these folks, and that's because racist left-wing radicals have graduated from colleges and universities that indoctrinated them in the first place, and then they've taken over our institutions as they rose to positions of power within those institutions. Guys, this is what a hostile takeover looks like, not a cultural difference. This is Al-Qaeda in America under a different name. Black Lives Matter is peacefully protesting in one city over here while inciting violence and murder in another city over there. Antifa, they're recruiting our children, and if you don't believe me, just go ask Google how many homeless kids there are in this country. The answer is totally shocking, and it's almost as shocking as when you Google the number of missing children in this country. I need you to understand something, and I'm going to say it very clearly. Just because you name an organization Black Lives Matter doesn't mean you care at all about Black lives. It doesn't mean your actions are going to reflect your namesake. If I was using Black Lives Matter's tactics, I'd name my podcast Puppy and Kitties Live Matter. I'd have 100,000 followers defending conservatism and right-wing values in the name of cute house pets without even friggin' realizing it. Look, folks, they don't want to even have a discussion. They just want to tear it all down. We're operating on two different sets of definitions. You could almost say two different languages, which is why what's happening is so confusing to people. We've seen the social justice warriors for years now, virtue signaling and calling out everyone and anything for anything seemingly disagreeable. Yet we just figured that they were suffering from some mental deficiencies or some sort of chemical imbalance. I mean, who the hell needs a safe space? And by the way, let me give you the Merriam-Webster definition for those who aren't up to date. Safe space, a place as on a college campus, intended to be free of bias, conflict, criticism, or potentially threatening actions, ideas, or conversations. You know, all the things scientifically proven to be required for humans to experience positive growth. But who needs positive growth anyway? That just sounds racist. I'm going to tell you exactly why this feels like we missed the bus somewhere. Well, I hate to say it, folks, but it's because we did. If you think racist still means the same thing as it did 20 years ago, then you've been living under a rock. A Nazi? It's not a Nazi anymore. A white supremacist isn't a white supremacist anymore. A bigot? A bigot's not a bigot anymore, apparently. They've changed so many definitions and made so many acceptable things absolutely unacceptable that anything anyone considers vocally offensive whatsoever is technically considered physically violent now. That's what I'm saying. Words apparently now equal violence. That's what the left believes, and that's what they've been teaching and have taught our kids. They believe that anything unsafe is evil and therefore must be destroyed and even met with violence. What's considered unsafe? Well, anything they deem unsafe. Of course, that's how this always works when fascists weave their webs, even if some of them don't realize that they're fascists yet. You see, when you can twist history, change definitions, brainwash the future generations, it becomes so much easier to topple a powerful nation. Just look at the National Socialist Party in Germany. Right now, we have some states teaching transgender education to K through 5 students while telling our children that America was founded on principles of white supremacy. They teach our kids that murderous white people are destroying the world and must be stopped. The truth is that this has absolutely nothing to do with that, and it has nothing to do with race. What's happening is not about equality, it's about control. It's about the redistribution of wealth. It's about a bunch of people manipulated into believing that our system must be torn down and replaced by socialism. You know, Hitler used to blame everything wrong in the world on the Jews, and now jackwagons like Ibram Kendi blame the same things on white people, while social media giants do their bidding and censor the right. So which night of rioting, then, do we consider the modern Kristallnacht? Which night in Portland or New York or Atlanta or Kenosha or Seattle, which night will become the new night of broken glass? Why do you think Jews are being called Nazis and blacks are being called race traitors by white woke leftists and radicalized minorities? Does this make sense to you? Does the Holocaust get to repeat itself now? Again, let me repeat something that I've said time and time before. What's happening right now? This has nothing to do with race. And just like I said before, this is all about power. This is all about control. If it wasn't about power and control, then there'd be a dialogue. There'd be a debate. But that's not what's happening. And you and I both know it. There's no dialogue. There's no debate. We're expected to shut our mouths and fall in line as they pad their socialist walls with a fake disenfranchisement and, dare I say, a militant arm. We can't get a clear answer from any news station on the television, and we're now depending upon civilian journalists to find out the truth, only to have that truth censored and removed hours later by large left-wing tech giants and possibly communist fact-checkers. How did this happen so fast, guys? This really feels like an invasion. And even worse, I could say this feels almost like an infection, a disease. And why wouldn't it feel like one? Just take a look at the territory the left controls. Let's count out. They have academia. They have all colleges, universities, much of the public school system. They also control most of the media and have a literal monopoly on social media platforms that are supposed to be indicative of free speech, yet have become comparable to a modern-day free speech gulag archipelago. Many of these industries are controlled by folks who have worked their way up from this indoctrination funnel and now hold powerful positions. We never noticed this before, guys. We just weren't paying attention. We didn't realize what was happening until Donald Trump was elected. I want you to remember the time before Donald Trump. If you close your eyes, squeeze them tight, and think happy thoughts, you may be able to remember a time when the far left was considered laughable by normal Democrats, a time when deadbeats like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren weren't taken seriously at all by the mainstream, as the Democrats felt power slip through their fingertips as they felt the bubble pop and their little scams and schemes disintegrate at the feet of the newly elected president in 2016. Something snapped. Like a middle-aged housewife experiencing a midlife crisis, the Democrat Party snapped and went off the deep end. Like pieces on a chessboard, the Democrat leadership realized that the only way they could possibly regain power would be to align themselves with the radical far left, a group that was always somewhat restrained by the moderates on the left side of the aisle. Are you getting the picture yet, folks? Someone made a terrible mistake and opened Pandora's box. That's what happened. Try to think about it by comparing it to a virus, say, to a pandemic. I want you to visualize a mind-altering and highly infectious organism engineered, say, in a lab. Let's call that horrible disease, this virus, let's call this virus the leftist ideology. Now, leftist ideology, the virus, this plague was being engineered at a lab, and we can call that lab the school system, institutions of government, the mainstream media. Well, let's just say there are many different labs. The Democrats, hungry and snarling, thirsty for power, come running into the lab at full speed, begging for help in the fight against the right, and frankly confused about how an outsider like Trump could just unseat what should have been a new political dynasty. Ever see the movie The Rock with Sean Connery and Nicolas Cage? You remember the green VX gas stored in those glass spheres, the super fragile glass spheres that once broken basically would kill everybody in the entire city? Yeah, well, the Democrats running into this hypothetical lab basically tackled an entire football field of glass spheres just full of highly contagious and poisonous VX gas, aka leftist ideology. This highly contagious leftist ideology worked its way through the rank and file citizenry of this country all the way up to the highest levels of the United States government. As we've seen over the last few years of relentless persecution, our president has had to endure. At the same time, our institutions were seized and our children were hypnotized. Things moved so quickly and the ideology infected so many. People needed someone to blame, and the infected pointed directly at the president. It seems we were in a pandemic for much longer than we were told. Years longer, in fact. With that being said, when we get back, guys, after a short break, we're going to talk more about this festering rot, this gangly infection spreading amongst us all, this leftist ideology infecting some of the dumbest among us, celebrities and politicians. In the meantime, please take a moment to like and share this podcast, rate us 5 stars on Apple, and leave a comment. Let me know what you think of this episode below, or email me directly at jameslane@AmericanReveille.com. That's American Reveille, REVEILLE.com. Thank you guys so much. This is the 34th episode of the American Reveille Podcast. My name's James Lane, and we'll be right back.
Reveille Podcast with James Lane would like to take a moment to thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to tune into the show. It's because of great fans like you that we strive to deliver the best quality content one can create as fast as one can fling the pen. With that being said, a good little boy never misses his opportunity to sell himself, and though James would never ask you for your money, he would like to let you know that if you absolutely love this podcast, the writing, the art, its production, anything, please do us the personal favor of liking, sharing, tweeting, texting, and talking about this podcast. James Lane is a father, a husband, a U.S. Navy veteran, and is personally committed to the success of the American Reveille Podcast. Please email James Lane directly at podcast@AmericanReveille.com, or please visit our website at www.AmericanReveille.com. Now, let's get back to the show.
The real pandemic isn't COVID-19, ladies and gentlemen. The real pandemic is the ideology that the Democrat Party unleashed upon the country when they aligned themselves with the far left, radicalizing or further radicalizing thousands of people and infecting celebrities, politicians, and college students with the same lust for easy power, status, and wealth. Why work hard for something? Why dream? Why toil? Why struggle for something when you can just take it off the backs of those who've done it for you already? One of the basic calling cards of socialism, the precursor to communism. We've watched this evil brewing in people like Smeagol in The Hobbit. Look at all of the attention-seeking people out there running around like evil little Smeagols trying to find their precious ring of power. It was more evident than ever when the president contracted COVID-19 and went to Walter Reed the other day, and celebrities came out of the woodwork to wish ill will and death upon the sitting president of the United States of America. Politicians like Biden used this as a PR moment while lying yet again, this time talking about taking down negative ads, while Ilhan Omar condemned him for even pretending to play fair, while other politicians simply wished hardship and hell upon our commander-in-chief. People we cared about, people we thought were good, like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, they sold us all out for a quick buck, and our enemies plotted the destruction of capitalism. Thankfully, though, they underestimated the brilliant power of our Constitution and the resilience of our great president. Let's take a deeper look, though, at how left-wing ideologies infected our institutions. If you still, though, don't believe me, then you can try to explain to me why about half of all students on college campuses believe the First Amendment should be restricted, so no one's feelings get hurt. I want to read something to you guys really fast. According to David Marotta, those who want to craft a socialist utopia usually believe that education is part of the work that needs to be done. If a child's nature is to be successfully shaped and molded, we cannot leave the job to be corrupted by the biases of parents or historically corrupt institutions. Indoctrination, although that term has negative connotations, is necessary in their view to overcome historical biases and produce the necessary utopian attitudes. Utopians assume that the evils of society are the result of a lack of knowledge, not a product of human nature. One of the tenets of a utopian socialist view is that human nature is basically good and that problems are easiest solved through the process of education. Those who believe this assumption often go into education or media. As a result, universities as well as the media have an overwhelmingly liberal bias. This liberal bias is not on account of some grand conspiracy. It's simply self-selection. Liberals go to journalism school and conservatives go to business school. Liberals tend to teach while conservatives tend to do. The liberal bias in academia is so overwhelming that it is near indisputable, yet liberals often refuse to accept the data and dismiss the evidence. They call everyone else biased and pretend that they are neutral centrists from which everyone else is biased towards. Conservative students avoid institutions and disciplines which are staffed by overwhelmingly liberal faculty. Partly as a result, conservative students do not pursue PhD level education as often as liberal students. Some conservatives are never accepted into tenure track positions. Some conservatives are denied tenure on account of their conservative or religious perspectives. The few conservative faculty in academia have a more difficult time getting their idea published in academic journals. So what did that just tell us? That told us that anyone to the right of anywhere on the far left is pushed out of influential fields and faculty positions in the realm of academia. And don't think for a moment that it's mutually exclusive. This is the same type of crap that happened to the movies and to the mainstream media. It doesn't stop there either, folks. Even the Pope is a socialist. This isn't anything new, by the way. Pope Francis has been manipulating politics ever since he ascended to the Vatican and became pontiff. He just wrote a letter to talk about his ideas for solutions to this world's problems or whatever. One of them talks about how capitalism proved a failure during the coronavirus pandemic. The guy literally spells out his own version of the Communist Manifesto, and he offers suggestions from his vast wealth of knowledge that he apparently got from talking to God, which I think you get a special phone or something. Do you? I don't know. Do you dial 0 to talk to God when you get that? Look, I'm not trying to disrespect Catholicism. I have my own relationship with God too, and I respect other people's faiths. Still, though, I feel like certain people in certain privileged positions of power are being played by imposters at this moment in history. And this Pope would have been great in Shakespeare's Richard III, and thus I clothe my naked villainy with odd old ends stolen out of Holy Writ, and seem a saint when most I play the devil. That quote I just read, that quote's synonymous with many politicians, many big tech business leaders, many celebrities. So what's the reality that we're all facing? Well, I think the reality that we're all facing is far different than anyone could have ever imagined. I think that there are many factors at play that have led us all as a society and even as a planet to some extent, the factors that have brought us all to this very moment in time. We've got the technology factor that considers social media in all of its variety and iterations combined with instantaneous information and handheld mobile capabilities. Translation, everybody has a cell phone. And now entire generations grow up with cell phones. Do we even know the long-term psychological effects of this? Is it possible that we're watching some of those long-term psychological effects play out right before our very eyes? Then take into account the people who have grown up in this system and have become school teachers. These are the people indoctrinating our children. Just the other day, a teacher was caught in Tacoma, Washington. He kicked a 10-year-old out of his online classroom because he stated that Trump was his hero for making America great again. That's an American boy praising his president, something we should be proud of. Instead, the teacher berates the student and tells him Trump is divisive and that his answer's a lie. He confuses and belittles an 11-year-old boy and then explains to the other students that our president is basically evil. These are 10-year-olds. Nothing happens to that teacher, even after the mom confronted him, and he acted nonchalant like what he was teaching should be common knowledge. Folks, this is happening all over the country. Every day, we have children being programmed and conditioned for K through 12 re-education training. I mean, public schools and universities, of course. They are all communicating with each other and the rest of the world on their cell phones, spreading these ideas on a device with possible long-term psychological consequences. Obviously, I'm talking about social media and other apps on their cell phones that we aren't maybe aware of. So now, let's add a media that suppresses ideas and free thought. Let's add a media that's controlled by the left with no ethical or moral boundaries, a media willing to manipulate, twist, misconstrue, and discombobulate any information in any way that fits the leftist narrative. A media willing to help the wealthy beneficiaries who stand to benefit from the media's crooked magician's tricks. we need not look any further than the headline over at CNN.com right now. Quote, Trump has COVID, but is not taking the pandemic seriously. End quote. Folks, there are no morals. There's no respect. There's no code of ethics, no dignity, no heart, no journalism, nothing left whatsoever in these mainstream media outlets, these antiquated, rotting time capsules. So then, to top it off, we have celebrities, Hollywood celebrities, equally infected with this leftist ideology, leading our young people astray as they go through withdrawal symptoms, fiending for any form of attention whatsoever. These are the people leading the fashion trends and the cultural discoveries of our young people. All of these networks, these actors, these tech businesses, they all influence our children. That's the big word today, folks. You heard it just as much as I have. It's influence, influencer. These people and these systems, they influence our kids, and then they spread the ideas on social media at light speed. This is something brand new for humans, and the results, they might turn out to be terrifying. We have to ask ourselves, is it possible in this technology revolutionary type of day and age that terrible information could be transmitted through social media and cell phones like a virus? Is it possible the left isn't influenced at all? Is it possible they are infected with leftism? That must be it, right? The left's infected, and they've spread their disease through all facets of our life. So much so that it's no longer ignorable or avoidable. The left is infected, and we are the cure. As long as leftist ideology is allowed to remain unchallenged, we will never be free. As long as the tech companies are allowed to censor us and destroy free speech, we will always be in bondage. As long as the mainstream media continues to wage a campaign of propaganda, we will remain silenced. As long as schools continue to teach our children a sick and twisted version of our American history and Constitution, they will continue to be indoctrinated. And as long as social media and censorship remain unchallenged, so too will the infectious spread of left-wing ideology and the evils of socialism and complacency that remain its unholy companions. Ladies and gentlemen, the left is infected, and we are the cure. The right is the cure. We hold the key to swinging the pendulum of fate back in the right direction to ensure our children grow up in a free America. So on Election Day, 29 days from today, we will show up in droves, in numbers the likes of which have never been seen, and we will overwhelmingly re-elect Donald Trump for a second term so he can finish the job and drain the damn swamp once and for all, for the sake of our future, our children's futures, and many generations to come. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's the show. That's episode 34, the one where I realized that leftism is actually a virus far more sinister than COVID-19 ever was. Everything the Dems and the left do revolves strictly around Donald Trump, like a crazy ex-girlfriend stalking him late at night. They have no lives anymore. No friends, no family, just everything. Everything revolves around Trump. Without him, the left, they don't have an identity. Without Donald Trump, the left and even the Dems may cease to exist. Translation? They've attacked him so much that they now need him to survive. How ironic. Anyway, before we start singing an Alanis Morissette song, we should probably make like a tree and get the hell out of here. This show is written, recorded, and produced by me, by myself. So if you appreciate all the hard work I put into it, please leave an honest rating and review on Apple, or just follow along and share this podcast with your friends and family. I need your help and support to get the word out about the American Reveille and everything we do here, from the articles to the podcast. So, folks, once again, any feedback, questions, concerns, you can get a hold of me directly at jameslane@americanreveille.com, or you can fill out the contact form if you'd like at www.americanreveille.com. Folks, I hope you have a great week, and I'll talk to you next Monday, or maybe even sooner. You never know. Peace!